So how does this ballot measure come to the ballot? Well, only one came from the legislature in Sacramento. That's Proposition 1. The rest of the state propositions came through an initiative or what we call a referendum, bringing it to the voter because it was part of the law to get your vote again, okay? So we're ready for Prop 1. That is called the Reproductive Freedom Measure. It came from the legislature and it would be a constitutional change. So currently, as you may know, the federal government started to ban the constitutional right to an abortion. However, abortion is still legal under California state law. And this proposition that I'm about to talk about does not change the California law. So the effect would be, we would add something into our Constitution to say that there is a right to choose an abortion or use contraception. It would be in the Constitution because it's not there now, and it's the people who put it there feel it is needed to be extra protection. And they feel that it would be harder for the future state government or court to limit reproductive rights. Proposition 1. Now I'm on the next slide for, that's okay, for where the money is coming from. Some of these slides are about a week out of date. It's very fluid, as you can imagine. Every day there's a change, but as of when we made these about a week ago, there was $9 million spent on the people for Proposition 1. And the list is up above me, but I'll just read a few. Planned Parenthood, California Federation of Teachers, ACLU, the League of Women Voters, California Nurses, and American College of OB/GYN. The people against it have spent about $100,000, and that includes East Valley Republican Women, Assembly Member Jim Patterson, Pacific Justice Institute, Republican Party of America, and the California Conference of Catholic Bishops.
To make sure we're looking at number 1. So you're listening to number 1. And after she speaks, you could decide yes or no, or undecided. Okay? Reproductive freedom. Okay, go ahead.
And Janie, you reminded me of a favorite phrase I just learned. Think of today as the first coat of paint. You may not know when you leave here today how you're going to vote on a certain ballot measure. That's okay. You're getting some information, and if I would recommend that you continue reading some more on the booklets that you're getting in the mail and other resources I'll give to Janie. So I read that. So we are ready for the slide that says Prop 1, reproductive freedom, the reasons to support. The reasons that people are supporting this is they say fundamental rights allow reproductive freedom, and that reproductive medical decisions belong with the individuals and their healthcare providers. The people opposed to Proposition 1 say that women already have the right to choose under current California law. And they also say you don't support reproductive freedom as a right. So what does your vote need? That's the next slide. A yes vote means that the Constitution will explicitly include rights to reproductive freedom and the use of contraceptives, for instance. A vote of no means you want the Constitution to stay the same way it is right now. We're moving on to the next proposition. It's called 26. 26 and 27 sound similar. I'm going to talk to you about how they're a little different. And Right now, 26, think of it as anything inside. It allows in-person roulette, dice, and sports betting. So currently, gambling in California is limited to state lottery, card rooms, horse race betting, and tribal casinos. What this would do is it would allow additional gambling, sports betting at racetracks and tribal casinos, and roulette and dice at tribal casinos. Next slide. So how much does this cost? That's our fiscal effects. Because of the extra gambling involved, there would be increased state revenues, possibly tens of millions of dollars annually. Next slide. So the people for 26 have spent approximately 112 million. It includes primarily 5 California Indian tribes, 30 other tribes in less amount of money, showing up for racial justice, 5 branches of that, and the Urban League and NAACP, 3 branches of those. The people against it, 42 million. It's primarily 6 non-tribal card rooms, Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, California Black Chamber of Commerce, National Veterans, California Senior Advocates League, and the LA Times and the Mercury News. So again, to summarize Prop 26, the reasons people support it is they say it helps Indian tribes provide vital services to their members, and that sports betting will be in person only. The reasons people opposed 26 is they say it expands the monopoly of tribal casinos, and they're worried about gambling being addictive. So again, a vote of yes means you want more in-person gambling options, roulette, dice, and sports betting at tribal casinos. Your vote of no on 26 means gambling would be limited to the current options. 27. This allows online sports betting. 26 was in person, and you heard those. So most sports betting online is not allowed in California. This would legalize online betting on sports and some non-athletic events. There would be no betting on elections or youth sports. And there would be large gambling companies could contract with the Indian tribes. Just a note that no sports betting was allowed until 1933. And then in 2018, the US Supreme Court said states could legalize sports betting in general. So sports betting is not currently legal online in California. What would be the fiscal effects? It would increase state revenues, possibly to hundreds of millions of dollars annually. It would pay for, now once you have to have some administrative costs out of that revenue coming in. So once you pay for the regulatory costs, then 85% of that money would go to programs for homeless, mental health, and gambling addiction. 15% would be for the tribes not involved in online sports betting. So Prop 27, next slide, allows online sports betting. The people for it, $169 million. Various agencies and people are listed there. It includes 5 mayors of California cities and California Solutions to Homeless and Mental Health. The people against 27 have spent $228 million. That includes primarily 5 California Indian tribes, the teachers at Union, the Democrats and Republicans, and 2 newspapers, the LA Times and Mercury News. So the reasons to support, sorry, thank you, Janie, allows more money for the homeless, mental health and addiction, and it can bring some money into smaller Indian tribes. The people opposed to 27 benefits large gaming companies and blocks smaller operations and makes gambling more accessible. There are some out-of-town gaming companies involved in this. That's what they mean. I just want to look at my. And your vote of yes on 27 would allow online sports betting. And a vote of no is to keep it the way it is, does not allow online sports betting. I'm going to give a Q&A right now. If both Prop 26 and 27 pass, it could end up in court. So if you're confused, I understand, but I just thought I'd at least give you that much now. And when we get to Q&A for, okay, we're ready for Prop 28. I realize I'm going quickly, but we have a lot to cover. This is called More Money for Arts and Music in Schools. It's an initiative and they'd like to change the law about some funding. So currently the state is required to spend 40% of the general fund budget on K through 14. That means 2 years of junior college. There's no guaranteed funding for arts and music education in K through 12 currently. Some schools do provide it because their parents supplement, for instance. So this law would say we want an additional funding for arts and music education to come out of the general fund. This is not an extra tax. We want 1% to come out of the general fund for arts and music education. And this would be more help for schools with low income students. Next slide. Because of this, we're talking about an increase of state expenses for art and music of possibly $1 billion per year. Again, it's not a tax, it would come out of the general fund. The people for it, a variety of people, plus the California Teachers Association, the PTA, LA Unified, Secretary of Education, LA Times. So far, we only had the Mercury News being against it. So the people for the 28 say it improves students' personal and academic life, and only 1 in 5 schools has a dedicated teacher for arts program. The people oppose it are not necessarily against art and music in school. They feel that the way this is budgeted is against their principles of how money is spent. They say that limits state funds available for other spending, and they say it limits flexibility to spend on the highest needs. So your vote for yes on 28 means you want guaranteed funding for art and music and education in K through 12 in the public schools. A vote of no means you don't want any change to the current funding. Prop 29. This is more regulations for kidney dialysis clinics. Does this sound familiar? It's been here before twice. This is the 3rd time you're seeing some variation of this bill. So Prop 8 in 2018 and Prop 23 in 2020 were similar and they did not pass. DaVita and Fresenius Medical Care operate almost 3/4 of the dialysis clinics. I'm just giving you some background. Currently, dialysis technicians and a nurse, RN, are on site. That's what's mandated. So if this law were to pass, 5 new things would have to happen. Instead of just a technician and RN, it would be now a doctor, or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant or telehealth during the treatment hours. They also want report of dialysis-related infections to be made known. They want it disclosed who owns the clinic. They want permission to close or reduce services. And they want people treated regardless of payment type. The fiscal effects. This could cost to the clinics hundreds of thousands of dollars more because of the staff requirements. And the state and local governments may have to spend tens of millions of dollars more because if the clinics close, patients go to the emergency room or clinics negotiate higher reimbursement rates. So on 29, so far about $8 million spent by SEIU, the Health Workers Union, representing the people, the staff who work in these clinics. The people against 86 million, primarily by DaVita and Fresenius, which are the two providers offering 75% of the care. And as you can see, a medical association, a dialysis council, American Nurses, and LA Times and Mercury News are against it. So 29, again, the reasons to support, be a doctor, nurse, or physician assistant should be available for procedures and would prevent financial discrimination to patients. The reasons to oppose for 29 are that the increased costs may close dialysis clinics, and this would cost additional requirements that could deplete hospitals and emergency rooms. Your vote on 29 of yes would mean you want those 5 additional regulations on the clinics. A vote of no says you want things the way they are. Prop 30. This is called the tax on millionaires for electric cars. So what you should know is that California is pushing for more electric vehicles. They're called zero emission vehicles, or ZEV. The goal is that by 2026, all new cars, 35% of them should be electric. These are new cars. 2030, 100% of all new cars would be zero emission vehicles. Okay, that's the current goal and what California has been pushing for, both by mouth and by money. The ride sharing companies, Uber and Lyft, are going to be mandated that 90% of their vehicles driven by their drivers need to be a zero emission by 2030. So the federal and state governments have been spending lots of money to speed up the adoption of this. Those are the background things you should know. This new tax, and the next slide will show this to you, but I'll tell it to you now. It'd be 1.75% on people who make more than $2 million a year. This room doesn't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it, but it is 1.75% for those making more than 2 million. How would that be spent? Well, this is what the slide shows, 45% to promote purchase of ZEVs, 35% to increase availability of charging stations. Currently, there are a few, but it would be more. And 20%, this is where you see it in the commercial, would be to fund wildfire suppression and prevention. It would, so as I said earlier, it would increase the income tax by 1.75% on individual incomes above 2 million. The thought is that would generate about $3.5 to $5 billion. And then that would be spent primarily on ZEV funding and maybe another $1 billion for wildfire response. So who's for it and against it? The people for it primarily is Lyft. The amount total is 47 million. International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, and so on. Representative Barbara Lee and California Representative Buffy Wicks. I'm sorry. The people against it, a variety of people there, and Governor Newsom, Teachers Association, the Republican Party, Chamber of Commerce, Howard Jarvis, and LA Times and Mercury. Let's see why they're against it. The reasons to support are that greenhouse gas emissions from transportation are the largest contributors to climate change. And we should make ZEVs more affordable. The reasons to oppose, people against it say that the state and federal governments are already spending a fair amount of money on this promotion. The high earners, the people over 2 million, may leave the state, and that if we lock in money raised by the tax increase, we're locked in, it can only be spent the way it was said in this law. So again, Prop 30, a new tax on incomes over $2 million to increase electric vehicle adoption and fight wildfires. There would be no change, a no vote means no change to the current tax rate. So now we're on Prop 31. This is called the Ban Flavored Tobacco Products. You've seen this before too. In 2020, we voted to ban stores and vending machines selling flavored tobacco products. However, the law was challenged and is on hold. So they said, we'll take this to the voters, and if the voters pass, then the law will go in effect. If it doesn't pass, it'll stay in courts. So the fiscal effect would be, because we're saying we want to ban certain products, there will be less revenues, possibly tens of millions of dollars to $100 million. Who's for it and against it? 31 people for it are Bloomberg, Kaiser, American Heart, Healthy California, Governor Newsom, California teachers, the 2 newspapers. The people against it have spent 23 million, primarily the tobacco companies, Swedish Match North America, and the California Republican Party. Let's hear what they have to say. People for 31 say that the flavored tobacco products lure children into a lifelong addiction and would make it harder to quit smoking. The people against it say, well, it's illegal to sell under the age of 21 anyway. And they say that the ban may lead to more smuggling and crime. And I know we have opinions, but we're going to try to keep them to ourselves, because this is neutral territory. I hear your passion, but thank you. Sometimes when somebody hears a comment, they might think it's me saying that. So that's why I'm being careful, okay? Okay, Prop 31. Your vote of yes would allow the law to take effect that bans the sale of flavored tobacco products. A vote of no, do not allow the law to take effect, and the sale of flavored tobacco products will continue. So we are done now with the state measures. And we'd like to give you an opportunity for questions.
Yeah. 3 questions, folks, on what you've heard. Ruby, can you watch the chat for me in case there's a question coming in through the chat? Go ahead, Keith.
Good morning, everyone. Keith the Reverend Wine, President of the Council of Elders here at St. Mary's. I find it amazing that you said on Prop 30 that Governor Newsom doesn't want this to pass. I understand that.
You are not alone, Keith. This is my 4th presentation, and I would say that that's the #1 question. Your booklets will tell you more, and I can only tell you some certain speculation. In fact, I'll give you a resource. KQED, the radio show, and the TV people did a good 20-minute segment on this. So see, as you can see, I'm limited to time and neutrality. But The speculation is indeed that he feels this is a power move by Lyft and that he doesn't want one company to have so much power. He is worried about millionaires moving out of the state. And in the booklet, you will see people say, is he trying to keep people happy? Is he got higher aspirations for presidency? Well, you as a voter have to figure that out. And then the other side says, wow, this money really would help us with the wildfires, with getting more cars, in this. They feel it's an extra money. So once again, it's how it's written, and it's sometimes it's a philosophy of some people who say, I agree with you, but was this the best way we can do it? So I'm trying to be really neutral here. It's an understandable question, but you're not alone. And I would just encourage you to look at the resources. I see them every day. Every day I get a new resource. So I'll send you the KQED discussion. Thanks, Keith.
Ready for another question? Oh, yes. Anything in the chat, Ruby?
My name is Carolyn. I think that them throwing in the I think that them throwing in the wildfire, the fire, I think that's just another excuse to, I don't believe that the wildfire and the firefighters have anything to do with this bill at all. That's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Okay, and I
That's just a comment.
I know, I just respect comments.
Yeah, good job.
And it does give your friends, food for thought. And that is also in the booklets.
Any
So-
questions from the
so
Asian
the
community?
ones that going forward, if you can make it a question.
Any questions from the chat room? Okay, I think
Okay.
we're ready to move forward.
Okay, thank you for those. And if you think of any others, please let Janie know, and like I said, every day we as a team are learning. And I just want to say there are about 40 women in the league who do a very intensive study on this. My shout out to all of them. They really work hard at this. They've been doing it for months and months, and I'm just the messenger. So when I don't know something, I will get back to you. So what you need to know now is how did these if you don't mind, the county measure is very quick, and I'll get to that, but we'll do the city because that's the order they're in. So how did these come to be? Well, most of what you're going to hear came from the city council. One came from the school district, and then an initiative about the zoo came from signatures. Okay, it's just sometimes nice to know how it got here. So we're going to start with Measure H, the College and Career Fund. Now, this is a parcel tax, so we need 2/3 of the voters to agree for it to pass. So a reminder that I wouldn't have remembered this myself, but Measure N back in 2014, the voters agreed to a $120 parcel tax to develop pathways to careers for our young people and integrate learning with work experience. So that's been going on since 2014, and the results are promising. Overall graduation rates increased from 61% to 73%, and about 15% increase of graduation rates for African-American students. So this measure would extend that parcel tax for another 14 years. It's the same amount, 120 per parcel. There would be a cost of living adjustment up to 3%. Exemptions are for seniors and low-income households would be exempted. And there'd always be an annual report and audit, just like before. My slides are weak on supporters and opponents. I'm going to have to send that. It just got adjusted. There may be some in there, but yeah, if you see any, Janie. Otherwise, I'm going to have to send you some new updated slides. The reasons to support H. Measure N has been effective from 2014. If we agree with this, it would provide consistent funding. The people who oppose it feel
Ballot.
that the money should not
Straight
come on a parcel tax, but it should come from Oakland Unified School District
Different measures
budget.
they talking about that. I ain't quite clear.
So Measure H, your vote of yes means yes, I agree to extend the $120 parcel tax for 14 years. And a vote of no says no, and it will run out in 2025. Measure Q, this is affordable housing authorization. This only requires a majority. Currently, the state law is that if a city wants to build an affordable housing project, the city's voters must approve that project. So that's what they're asking for our approval today. It would authorize 13,000 affordable housing units here in Oakland. And there are no fiscal effects. This is really getting our permission because it's a state law. Once again, I don't have a list. My apologies. They just hadn't gotten the registrar's list. It may be in your booklets, which also I'll see. So measure Q, the reasons to support are that it would help Oakland's overall housing plans and that projects can move forward without unnecessary delays. There are no formal opposition or arguments published as yet. Measure R, this is gender neutral language. This needs a majority. So currently the Oakland City Charter uses gender specific words to refer to city workers and officials, such as firemen. The city charter also uses male and female pronouns like he and she. This law would change that to allow the city charter to replace gender specific words with gender neutral words. Instead of firemen, it would be firefighter. And the city charter would also use gender neutral pronouns like they. He, him, she, her, and they for those identifying as they. So no fiscal effects. The reasons to support, it would reflect the diverse gender identities of the city's staff and workers, and it would align Oakland with the professional guidelines from the state. The people against R say that, we have no formal opposition. Measure S, this is the non-citizen voting. This would affect Janie if she had kids at school. So to vote in Oakland School Board, you have to be a US citizen and 18 years of age. Non-citizens cannot vote. That includes legal permanent residents, people with work visas, and undocumented. So there are 13,000 parents or guardians who have children in Oakland who are non-citizens. Now you should know that the San Francisco people passed this kind of law a few years ago, but it's in court. So you should just know that they passed it, but now it's in court. So what would this do? It would change the city charter to allow passing a local law. And if that passes, the non-citizen residents can vote in Oakland school board elections, parents, guardians, and legal caregivers of children. How much would this cost? Well, when you change that, there's administrative costs of $21,000 to $28,000 and possibly more costs for keeping track of the additional voter data. So again, I don't have a good list of supporters or opposition. So, well, I'm sorry, the previous, but now we're into reasons to support. I just don't have specific people. Yeah, so now I'm on reasons to support. Measure S. Yeah, I'm not looking. Oh. You know what? I did give you the updated slides. Yay. So Zoom people and you are getting them. I don't have them. Okay. I apologize because I just downloaded. Okay, good. I think I was a little smarter than I thought this morning. Okay. So now we're on reasons to support though, right? And parents should have an influence over school board policy. These are the people who want this, elect good school board leaders and encourage civic participation. The people against it are worried about risks because they're not documented, and would it interfere with immigration laws and ICE, difficult implementation, and they feel there's more legal challenges. So again, a measure S, your vote yes would be you now allow eligible non-citizens to vote in school board elections, and a vote of no means keep it the way it was. Measure T, this is a business tax rate. It needs majority. So right now, this graph on the left shows you that for any business revenue, there's a flat tax. It doesn't matter how much the business makes. And by the way, this change will not apply to rental property. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So on the left is the flat tax, the way it is now. If we passed Measure T, the more money the business makes, the higher the tax. It's called progressive tax. Some small businesses will pay less, and larger companies may pay many times more. So current business tax revenue for the city is about $104 million. If we passed Measure T, we would get another $21 to $22 million. And you're getting the list of supporters. Good. More on that side, very little on the other side. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm on reasons to support. Measure T. Other cities like San Francisco, Richmond, and San Jose have progressive tax rates. And they feel that this is an extensive compromise to raise revenue. The people against it think that businesses may leave Oakland, and they feel that tax increases should be introduced more slowly. So Measure T, again, your vote of yes means you want to change from a flat tax to a progressive tax. And a no vote means keep it the way it is. Measure U. This is the infrastructure bond. And your booklets have a lot about bonds. I don't have time to go over it, but they do talk about bonds. We need a 2/3 passing on this one. On this slide, I recommend you read across. Currently on the left on background, Measure KK, we voted in for $600 million to take care of housing, street paving, and city facilities. So on the left, you see what we agreed to in 2016. On the right, you'll see what we want in Measure U. We're going to want 250 million total more. And you'll see that housing goes from 100 million to 350 million. Street paving went down a bit from 350 to 290. I'm just reading across. And then repair city facilities went up a bit. And then they tell you what they're going to do about the repairs. That includes parks, fire, police, and library. So Measure U, we'd have to increase the property tax $67 per 100,000 assessed value, not market value, it's assessed value. So example, if a house is assessed at 500,000, it would be an additional $335 per year in taxes. The taxation for the overall bond repayment is currently limited to $220 per 100,000. The city put a cap on that. So the list of supporters. Yep. And opposition. Next slide, the reasons to support. We should continue the work begun under Measure KK, and our aging city facilities need repair. The people against Measure U say it's got oversight standards that are not adequate and property taxes are too high. So your vote of yes on Measure U would mean you agree to additional funds to build more affordable housing, repave streets, and improve aging city facilities. A vote of U means no additional funds. Keep it at the same amount. Measure V, we're almost there. Just cause for evictions. This needs a majority. Currently, tenants are protected in a variety of ways. It applies to buildings built before 1995, identifies the tenant's actions such as failure to pay rent, which justify an eviction. It does give owners the right to evict even if no tenant has a fault. The owner can evict to occupy the unit themselves and to do significant repairs. Measure V would change a few things. Instead of buildings before 1995, now it would be more buildings, everything built prior to 10 years ago. And it would add more tenants, those who are living in motorhomes and tiny homes. And it would have new limits on the right to move in and repair, especially during the school year. They felt that this was disruptive for the families who had children in school. So there are some council members supporting and so on. Measure V, the reasons to support. It would allow for less displacement, especially for students and school employees. And there would be a 10-year exemption for units, including what we call alternate dwelling unit, ADU. It's like the little house in the backyard of a current home. And it should not discourage new construction. The people against it say this may discourage new construction and drive up rents. And they also feel that tenant protections these extra protections for the tenants may discourage landlords from renting to them. Measure V, again, your vote yes means more renter protection measures, and a no vote on V means no change to the current protections. We're on Measure W, Fair Elections Act. The current situation, as you know, running for office costs a lot of money. There are very few donors who provide most of the campaign money. And small campaign funding program they feel would work. So this would allow the voters 4 $25 vouchers to give to a candidate. There would be more disclosures on ads, lower limits for donations, and more lobbying restrictions. It would cost about $700,000 in startup costs, $1.5 million a year for staff and non-staff, $4 million per 2 years for the candidate vouchers. The people for it, you see that at home and up here, and against it. Okay. And you have these slides in case people want to see it. So the next one is Measure W. I'm sorry, still on Measure W, the reasons to support more fair elections. And in Seattle, they have started this and they feel that it has increased candidate and voter diversity. The reasons to oppose, candidates may choose not to participate, and they feel it's not an effective use of city funds. We're on X and we just have to get to Y. Government reforms. This is put into, the city council put this up because they felt there were certain things going on in the way the city council and the mayor do things that were not good or efficient. So on the left, you'll see that there are no term limits for council members. X would say there'd be a limit on 3 consecutive terms with some stipulations. Right now, we only have one public hearing on a topic. They would want 2 public hearings. Right now, we vote and the mayor breaks the tie. The new way would be abstentions and absences would be counted as no. The Public Ethics Commission and the council members set the salaries. Now it would be set by the CPI and every 2 years. And the city auditor and attorney can support candidates in ballot measures. The new rule would be they are not allowed to do that. And one more, the city auditor, next slide, is not required to employ a specific number of staff. That would change. They would have to have government experience and 14 FTE staff. And there would be changes to procedures to fill vacancies on boards and commissions. So all of these changes would cost more, about $860,000 a year. The list of supporters. Mostly the public ethics and some council members, and none submitted for Measure X opposed. So reasons to support X addresses some of the problems with Oakland government operation. It may make the offices of city auditor and city attorney more effective, and it would attract and retain more qualified candidates. The people against it think it's a piecemeal approach, that different reforms are bundled together. Term limits are not absolute. So again, okay, we're done with that one. Measure Y, our zoo parcel tax, our last city measure, and then we have one county. So currently, the zoo, by the way, this is a parcel tax, but this time it's only a majority. The annual budget for the zoo is about $24 million. 8% comes from public funding, such as the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda. And currently about 1 million people visit our zoo. Only 15% are from Oakland. Interesting. So this parcel tax is asking that we fund the zoo with a 20-year parcel tax and raise $12 million. And the current public funding would stay the same from the city and the county. Pardon me. The 20-year parcel tax would start next year. Residential property owners would pay $68 a year. Multi-unit residences would pay $68 a year for each unit, and non-residential assessment would be based on the size of the property. The people supporting it. Sorry, next slide. You know, generally the people with the zoo affiliated, there are some people in the zoo not for it, because here's why. Next slide, when you have time. The reasons to support: the zoo needs funding. It may expand educational programs and offer free passes. The people who work at the zoo who are against it say it's not specific enough of how it will be spent. And they feel that it's unfair to Oakland property owners because the majority of people are from outside Oakland. Okay. So what your vote means on Measure Y, it would be a new parcel tax, more funding for Oakland Zoo, and a vote of no means you want it the same way it always is. Okay, we have just one more measure. I'm so sorry. Sometimes, okay, I just want to honor your time. So the whole county of Alameda, as you know, stretches all the way out to Livermore. There's agricultural land in non-incorporated areas. So back in 2000, the voters passed Measure D, and this set a ratio of agricultural buildings and horse arenas to land in unincorporated areas of Alameda County. When that was voted in, this happens often. They put in a little phrase that says, okay, if we're going to do anything change about this, it has to be put out to a vote to the voters again. So that's why we're seeing this. It requires a vote by us, the county residents. What they want to change is the ratio of agricultural buildings and equestrian arenas relative to the land area to allow expansion. So it was placed on the ballot by the Board of Supervisors. They had over 30 public meetings in the last year. Nate Miley is primarily the Board of Supervisor person who was on it, and Greenbelt Alliance. No official funding committee opposed. The people for it say that this allows more space for covered corrals at equestrian facilities as well as performance areas. The intent of the buildings is still agricultural. It's not like they're going to put housing in there. They're just talking about the ratio. It would allow expanded storage areas, processing retail facilities for wineries, olive presses, and so on. The people against it think it will enable a handful of big wineries to triple in size while the smallest would not grow. And they feel that it weakens Alameda County's environmental protections. That is it. So I want you to see this just as a picture. This is up on our League of Women Voters website. The website is, I just give shout out to all the people who worked on that. It's very, very nice. Everything you know, you can just click away. So this is an example. You'll see Measure T. You know, remember, this was the first coat of paint. You might want to go back and see more about this. So you can get a one-pager. You can even watch a video about each of those city measures. And then that's an example. And then the state measures too. So yeah, the next slides we don't have to show because you're going to be sharing those resources. Questions, yeah.